Have you ever felt it? The sudden distance, the cold silence that leaves your heart spinning? You wonder if it's you, if you did something wrong, or if they simply don't care. You're not imagining it. There's a tension you feel in your chest when someone you care about pulls away, and yet there are moments that make you hope, moments that make you question everything you thought you knew about love, about connection, about yourself. That push and pull, the fear of losing them, the thrill of their rare closeness. It's exhausting, confusing, and strangely addictive. You crave clarity, a sign, anything that tells you they are truly invested. And you deserve that clarity. You deserve to know the truth without guessing, without second guessing, without letting your heart twist itself into knots. There's a pattern here, subtle but undeniable. You've noticed it in the way they disappear without warning, how they drift away when things feel too close and then return as if nothing happened. It's not random, it's a rhythm, a dance between fear and desire. They want connection, but they fear it more. They long for closeness, but vulnerability terrifies them. And when they do invest, it's not with grand gestures or constant words. It's in the quiet, almost invisible ways. The lingering glance, the small effort, the way they remember something you mentioned once in passing. These gestures may feel insignificant, but they carry weight heavier than any declaration. They reveal a heart quietly fighting its own instincts, choosing you despite the fear that tells them to pull away. You've probably caught yourself analyzing every word, every pause, every absence. You've stayed awake wondering if a simple message was just that, or a sign of something deeper. This is the reality of loving someone with an avoidant heart. They don't hand their feelings freely. They measure every step, weighing the risk of exposure against the desire to connect. And when they finally let a fragment of their heart slip through, it's monumental. That fragment is a promise, though unspoken. It's proof that beneath the cool exterior, beneath the walls they've built, they care. They are fighting a battle you can't always see. A battle that shows up in whispers rather than proclamations, in small sacrifices rather than grand overtures. It's easy to feel like you're chasing shadows, that their love is fleeting or conditional. But that perception is flawed. Their love is present, just not in the way most people expect. They measure devotion differently. Consistency looks rare, but it's deliberate. Attention may seem limited, but it's selective. It's reserved for those who matter most, for those who spark something worth the risk. When they share a moment, when they check in despite the distance they crave, when they linger just a little longer than they need to. It's not casual. It's investment. It's a signal, subtle yet powerful, that they have chosen to let you in, even if only a sliver at a time. And this is where your own perspective shifts. Understanding them requires patience, observation, and a willingness to read between the lines. You begin to see the patterns not as rejection, but as signals. You start to recognize the ways they show care without words, without declarations. You notice the small threads connecting moments, a message sent when they didn't have to, a detail remembered, a presence given when avoidance screamed at them to retreat. These are not accidents. They are their version of love, wrapped in hesitation and fear, but genuine nonetheless. You've endured the uncertainty, the anxiety, the late nights spent questioning their heart. And yet, here you are, still searching, still hoping. That hope isn't weakness, it's insight. It's the part of you that sees beneath appearances and demands truth. The reward for understanding is clarity, for seeing their love in its authentic form, for recognizing that beneath the fear and distance, there is investment, commitment, and the desire to connect. You don't have to guess forever. You don't have to twist yourself into confusion. There is a way to see them clearly, to feel the depth of their emotions, to understand when their heart is truly present. It may not be loud, it may not be constant, but it is real. And recognizing it is your way forward, your way to peace, your way to knowing love that chooses, even when fear tries to hide it. Every moment of distance, every pause, every retreat carries meaning if you look closely. They are not absent, they are careful, they are measured. They are guarding something precious, and that something is you. When you learn to see these signs, to read the quiet language of their heart, the confusion begins to fade. The anxiety dissolves. You understand that love isn't always a storm of words. It can be a quiet, deliberate choice made in the shadows, a connection that grows stronger with patience, insight, and awareness. This understanding is not just a relief, it's a revelation. It is proof that beneath the walls, behind the fear, there is a heart willing to fight, willing to care, willing to invest in you, and that is worth everything. Every subtle gesture, every pause, every return after distance carries weight. When they reach out, even in small ways, it is deliberate. It is proof that you matter enough to break through their instinct to retreat. You begin to notice the little things, the way they check in when they don't have to, the effort they make when it would be easier to disappear, the quiet consistency in moments others might overlook. These are not coincidences, they are choices, small battles fought silently against their own fears. And each one is a signal of investment, a signal that their heart, even if cautious, is tethered to yours. The truth is, love from someone with an avoidant heart is a test of perception and patience. It is not flashy or loud. It does not arrive in grand declarations or constant attention. It comes in fragments, in careful glimpses, in fleeting moments of vulnerability. And the value of those moments cannot be overstated. Each one is a risk for them, a surrender of control they fiercely guard. When they expose a crack in their armor, when they let a piece of their heart be seen, it is monumental. It is a declaration of trust. And trust, once given, is rare, precious, and deeply revealing. You may feel moments of frustration, of doubt, of fear that their care is fleeting or conditional. Those feelings are real, but they do not tell the whole story. Behind the withdrawal, behind the silence, there is intention. Behind the hesitation, there is connection. And when you learn to read the language of those subtle choices, the confusion begins to clear. You begin to see the pattern not as rejection, but as a map. You begin to recognize when their heart is present, even if it does not always speak the words you wish to hear. Their actions, small but deliberate, carry more truth than any promise ever could. Every interaction becomes a signal, a thread connecting moments into a tapestry of care. A text sent when they didn't need to, a memory remembered when it could have been forgotten, a presence given when retreat was easier. These are proof. They reveal a heart willing to navigate fear, willing to choose you, willing to invest in a way that is authentic and enduring. It is subtle, yes, but it is unmistakable once you learn to see it. And seeing it changes everything. It shifts anxiety into awareness, doubt into clarity, longing into understanding. And here is the most powerful part. Recognizing their investment is not just about understanding them, it is about reclaiming your own power. It is about refusing to chase shadows, refusing to second-guess your worth, refusing to mistake hesitation for disinterest. When you see the signals clearly, you begin to act from certainty, from knowledge, from insight. You no longer bend yourself to fit their rhythm. You acknowledge it, respect it, and respond with the awareness that their love, while cautious, is real and deliberate. This is not a passive observation. It is active empowerment. It is taking control of how you interpret care, how you respond to connection, how you value the moments they choose to share with you. Your heart has been through uncertainty, testing, and doubt. But now, understanding begins to illuminate the path. You start to see that the patterns you feared are not rejection, they are deliberate choices. Every small effort, every subtle gesture, every moment they return after distance is a sign that they are invested, a sign that they care, a sign that beneath the fear, beneath the walls, beneath the instinct to pull away, there is a heart that chooses you repeatedly, quietly, deliberately. And when you see this, truly see it, everything changes. You no longer feel helpless in the face of their distance. You no longer question your own worth. You understand the rhythm of their heart, the language of their love, the meaning behind their choices. You begin to honor it, to recognize it, to respond with the clarity and confidence it demands. You realize that love does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it lingers, sometimes it comes wrapped in hesitation, but it is no less real. It is deliberate. It is meaningful. It is powerful. This understanding transforms your journey. It changes how you relate, how you perceive, how you value the moments you share. You begin to trust the signals, to appreciate the investment, to recognize the rarity of the care they offer. And with that recognition comes freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from constant questioning, freedom from the emotional chaos that once consumed you. You see clearly, act decisively, and honor both your heart and theirs. You witness the subtle power of their love, and in doing so, you step into a new clarity, a new awareness, a new sense of strength that carries you forward with certainty and insight. Once you recognize the signs, everything changes. You stop spinning in confusion and start seeing patterns that were invisible before. Every pause, every retreat, every moment of silence is no longer a threat. It becomes a message. A message that says, I care even when it scares me. You begin to read their heart like a language, subtle, quiet, but unmistakable. Their love is not reckless. It is measured. It is careful. It is deliberate. And once you understand this, your perception of them and of yourself shifts entirely. You stop chasing. You stop doubting. You start observing. You start recognizing. You start understanding. Every moment they resist closeness, every time they pull away, it isn't rejection, it's protection. A shield raised not against you, but against their own fears. And every time they lower that shield even slightly, it's monumental. It's a choice. A battle fought quietly in the corners of their mind and heart. And when you witness it, when you see it for what it truly is, you feel the weight of their investment. You feel the courage it takes for them to care. You feel the deliberate effort hidden in small gestures, in thoughtful messages, in a presence that shows up even when retreat whispers louder. This is where the stakes rise. You can't afford to misread these moments. They are rare, precious, and revealing. Missing them means missing the depth of connection they offer. Understanding them means stepping into a reality where love is not always loud, but it is always meaningful. It's in the timing of a message, the persistence of a question, the way they remember details no one else would. These are the signatures of their heart. These are proofs of investment. And recognizing them isn't passive. It's a call to awareness, a call to action. Your heart has endured uncertainty, confusion, and longing. It has felt the ache of wondering if you matter, but the truth is you do. They are showing you, not in ways that the world applauds, but in ways that matter. Small sacrifices, careful attention, moments of presence, they are all deliberate choices that signify care, and every choice they make to connect, despite fear, speaks louder than words ever could. The subtlety is not a flaw. It is their way of protecting what matters most, themselves and the connection they've chosen with you. Now imagine what happens when you see clearly, when you stop interpreting distance as disinterest and start recognizing it as cautious investment. You begin to value the moments of connection for what they truly are. You stop chasing illusions of constant reassurance. You understand that love, for someone who fears it, arrives in fragments, and each fragment is monumental. You begin to appreciate the weight of their effort, the courage behind their care, the depth hidden beneath hesitation. You begin to respond not with anxiety, but with awareness, not with doubt, but with clarity, not with fear, but with strength. This awareness transforms your world. You no longer bend to uncertainty. You no longer question your worth. You honor both your heart and theirs. You recognize that love can be deliberate, careful, and quiet, and still be real, powerful, and transformative. Every small gesture becomes a signal you can read. Every return after distance becomes proof. Every choice to engage, despite fear, becomes a confirmation of care. And with this recognition, you step into a place of power, a place where clarity replaces doubt, insight replaces confusion, and strength replaces longing. You start to act from understanding. You begin to respond with intentionality, not reaction. You value their moments of presence, and you stop being controlled by absence. You honor the subtle ways they invest, because now you know that each act, no matter how small, carries the weight of a heart choosing deliberately. You stop chasing shadows. You start reading the signals. You begin to witness love in its raw, cautious, beautiful form. And as you do, you realize something extraordinary, that love, even when wrapped in fear, is not diminished. It is amplified. It is intentional. It is rare. It is worth everything. The clarity you gain is more than insight. It is freedom. Freedom from doubt. Freedom from confusion. Freedom from the emotional chaos that once controlled you. You see them clearly, understand their rhythm, and respond with certainty. You recognize the courage behind every gesture, the heart behind every silence, the truth behind every retreat. And in that recognition, you find not just understanding, but peace. You see love not as chaos, but as a deliberate, powerful choice made in the face of fear. You see it for what it is, real, precious, and profoundly meaningful. And with that sight, you step forward with confidence, clarity, and the knowledge that you are worthy of every ounce of care they choose to give. Every choice they make is a reflection of a battle inside them, a struggle between fear and desire. When they linger, when they reach out, when they make an effort, even when instinct urges them to retreat, it is deliberate. It is proof that you matter. It is evidence that their heart has chosen you, even when their mind screams to protect itself. And once you recognize this, the way you view connection changes. You stop mistaking caution for rejection. You stop questioning your worth. You start reading the quiet language of their care. You begin to see love in its rawest, most authentic form, a love that is not reckless, not loud, not predictable, but real. Every silence, every pause, every distance now carries meaning. They are not absent, they are careful. They are guarding something precious, something they do not give freely. And you, by noticing, by understanding, are being trusted. Each small gesture, each subtle sign of attention is an intentional act of connection. A glance held a moment longer, a message sent despite hesitation, a presence offered even when retreat feels safer. These are not trivial acts, these are proof that they are fighting for you quietly, deliberately, with a courage you may never fully see but can always feel. You begin to realize the stakes are higher than you imagined. Every moment of connection is rare, every act of care intentional, every sign of investment precious. You cannot afford to overlook them. You cannot afford to misread them. To fail to see the truth behind the subtle signals is to miss the depth of a heart willing to risk discomfort, vulnerability, and fear to choose you. And when you see this clearly, you understand that love is not always a roar. It is often a whisper. It is often a quiet, careful insistence that what matters most is preserved and nurtured, even in the face of fear. This understanding changes you. It teaches patience, awareness, and the power of perception. You no longer react out of anxiety. You no longer chase illusions of constant reassurance. You respond from insight, from clarity, from knowledge that each gesture, each return, each subtle act is deliberate. You honor it. You respect it. You let it guide you instead of letting uncertainty control you. You step into the rhythm of their heart, into the deliberate flow of connection, and suddenly the chaos of doubt dissolves. You see the strategy behind the silence, the courage behind the distance, the devotion behind the hesitation. And in this clarity, something extraordinary happens. You stop measuring love by volume or frequency. You stop expecting grand displays, endless words, or constant presence. Instead, you begin to value precision, intention, and effort. You begin to treasure what is rare because it is real. You begin to appreciate the deliberate nature of care, the courage it takes to invest when fear beckons them to pull away. You start to recognize the difference between avoidance and absence, between fear and disinterest. You understand that every small act, every careful step forward is a choice to connect, to invest, to fight for something that matters. Your heart, once exhausted by uncertainty, now feels empowered by clarity. You see the subtle currents of affection, the deliberate signals, the intentional acts of connection. You no longer bend under doubt. You no longer question your worth. You act with insight. You respond with understanding. You honor both your own heart and the heart that is quietly choosing to invest in you. Every interaction becomes a signal to read. Every return after distance, a confirmation of care. Every gesture, a testament to deliberate love. And this awareness gives you freedom. Freedom from confusion. Freedom from anxiety. Freedom from endless questioning. You see clearly, you understand deeply, you act decisively, you recognize the courage behind their choices, the heart behind their silence, the love behind their fear. And in this recognition, you find not just clarity, but power. Power to honor connection, to respond with certainty, to value moments of care, and to witness love in its most authentic, deliberate, and transformative form. You see it for what it is, rare, intentional, and worth everything. Now you are no longer at the mercy of uncertainty. You are awake to the signals, alert to the intentions, and aware of the investment. You step into the relationship with clarity, strength, and confidence. You honor the subtle, careful, courageous love that chooses you, and in doing so, you elevate not just your understanding of them, but your understanding of yourself. You realize that love, even when cautious, is not diminished, it is amplified. And in recognizing it, you claim the clarity, the empowerment, and the peace you have always deserved. The moment you recognize the depth of their careful love, everything shifts. You stop seeing distance as rejection and start seeing it as a challenge, a measure of how much they are willing to risk for connection. Every act of attention, no matter how small, becomes a signal. Every fleeting message, every remembered detail, every choice to linger when retreat feels safer is proof that their heart is invested. And when you see this, truly see it, you begin to understand the courage it takes to love while fearing. You feel the weight of each deliberate act, the intention behind every moment they choose to connect, and the significance of the care they offer, despite their own fears. You begin to notice patterns that were invisible before. You see how they return after distance, not randomly, but intentionally. You feel the rhythm of their heart and the timing of their gestures, the subtle way they fight against their instinct to pull away. Their care is quiet, precise, and purposeful. It is not given lightly, and it is not wasted. When you recognize it, you understand the stakes. These are rare moments, deliberate choices, acts of courage that signal deep emotional investment. You can no longer afford to misread them. To overlook these signals is to miss the truth of their heart. The intensity of their investment becomes clearer with each observation. Every hesitation is a shield. Every retreat is a test. And every small act of connection is a victory over fear. You realize that their love is measured, not absent. You see that what may feel inconsistent is actually deliberate. It is their way of balancing fear and desire, protecting themselves while showing care. And in that understanding, you find clarity. You see love not as chaos, but as a precise, intentional force that chooses who to touch, and how deeply understanding this changes your perspective entirely. You stop bending under uncertainty. You stop questioning your worth. You respond with awareness instead of anxiety, with insight instead of fear. Every interaction becomes a signal to observe, every return after distance a confirmation of care, every deliberate choice a message of trust. You recognize that their love, though cautious, is real, it is intentional, it is rare, and it is worth honoring. You step into this understanding, not passively, but actively, sing to value the care they offer, to appreciate the courage behind every gesture, and to respond with clarity and presence. This recognition gives you power, power to act with confidence, power to honor the moments of connection, power to understand when love is being shown, even if it isn't loud. You no longer chase illusions of constant attention. You no longer interpret absence as indifference. You see the deliberate acts of care for what they are, proof of a heart willing to invest despite fear. You see the courage it takes to show love, the vulnerability hidden in small gestures, and the deliberate effort that signals true connection. Your heart, once exhausted by doubt and uncertainty, now rises in clarity. You can read the quiet signals, interpret the deliberate choices, and recognize the investment in every small act. You act with understanding, respond with insight, and value connection in its authentic form. The subtlety of their love is no longer frustrating. It is evidence of courage. Every small gesture becomes monumental. Every moment of presence becomes meaningful. Every careful effort becomes proof that they have chosen you, not casually, but with deliberate intention. And in this understanding, you find freedom. Freedom from the chaos of doubt. Freedom from the spinning thoughts that once consumed you. Freedom from interpreting distance as rejection. You see clearly, you understand deeply, you act decisively, you honor both your heart and theirs, you recognize the courage behind every gesture, the heart behind every silence, and the love behind every hesitant step forward. And with that recognition comes clarity, strength, and the peace of knowing that they, even when cautious, is not diminished. It is amplified, deliberate, rare, and profoundly meaningful. You begin to move forward differently. You respond with awareness. You value each connection. You witness love in its most authentic, cautious, and deliberate form. You recognize the investment, you honor the effort, and you cherish the rare courage it takes to care. You understand that love is not measured by volume or noise, but by intention, presence, and deliberate choice. And as you step into this awareness, you realize something extraordinary, that love, even when wrapped in fear, is not limited. It is amplified. It is powerful. It is worth everything. And now, with clarity and insight, you step forward, ready to see, to honor, and to embrace it fully. Once you see the courage behind their care, you realize that every act, no matter how small, carries immense weight. Every message sent when they could have stayed silent, every detail remembered when it would have been easier to forget, every moment of presence offered despite fear. All of it is deliberate. It is their way of saying, without words, that you matter, that they matter, that this connection is worth the risk. And when you truly grasp this, you understand the stakes are higher than you ever imagined. This is not casual attachment. This is intentional investment. This is a heart choosing over and over again to show up even when fear screams at them to retreat. You start to notice the patterns that once confused you. You see how distance is not absence but a careful calibration of closeness. You understand that retreat is not rejection but a shield raised against vulnerability. You see the return, the lingering presence, the deliberate attention as proof that beneath the surface they are engaged, committed, and fighting for connection. And suddenly, the confusion that once consumed you begins to fade. You start interpreting every gesture, every pause, every subtle sign, not with doubt, but with clarity. You start reading the language of careful love, a language that is quieter, rarer, but more powerful than anything spoken aloud. And as you see clearly, you begin to act differently. You no longer chase shadows or spin yourself into anxiety over silence. You stop measuring love by volume, by noise, by constant reassurance. You begin to value the deliberate, careful ways they invest. You honor the courage it takes for them to reach out, to linger, to show up even when their instincts push them to withdraw. Each gesture becomes monumental. Each return becomes a victory. Each moment of connection becomes a testament to the strength of their heart. And in recognizing this, you find a clarity that is freeing, empowering, and transformative. Your heart, once exhausted by uncertainty, now rises in strength. You can read the signals, understand the intentions, and respond with presence and insight rather than fear and doubt. You honor the subtle acts of love and courage because now you understand their weight. You see how deliberate and rare they are. You recognize that every careful step forward, every pause overcome, every act of engagement is a choice that proves investment, commitment, and a willingness to care deeply, even when fear threatens to dominate. And when you witness this clearly, you no longer feel powerless. You no longer question your value. You no longer interpret distance as rejection. You act from clarity. You respond from insight. You engage with awareness. The stakes grow higher with every observation. Every signal matters. Every moment becomes a test of perception. To overlook the subtle ways they invest is to miss the proof of their heart. To misread the quiet signals is to misinterpret love itself. And understanding this gives you power. The power to recognize investment, to honor courage, to respond with knowledge, and to value connection as it truly exists. You begin to see love as it is, not as you hoped it would be, not as the world tells you it should be, but as a deliberate, cautious, and profoundly meaningful force, choosing carefully, showing up despite fear, and willing to fight for connection in its own quiet way. And this awareness transforms everything. You see love not as chaos, not as inconsistency, not as absence. You see it as intentional. You see it as courageous. You see it as rare. You understand that the hesitation, the retreat, the silence, they are not flaws, they are evidence. Evidence that every moment of connection is earned, chosen, and precious. You begin to respond with strength, clarity, and presence. You begin to honor their careful investment while honoring your own worth. You begin to recognize the courage behind every gesture, the heart behind every pause, and the intention behind every act of care. And in this recognition, you step into a new space, a space of clarity, power, understanding, and the profound freedom of witnessing love as it truly is. You no longer bend under uncertainty. You no longer chase illusions. You no longer spin in doubt. You see the deliberate nature of their investment, and you respond in kind. You recognize the courage it takes to love cautiously. You value each gesture. You witness the care that is given, rare and deliberate, and you honor it. Every act of presence, every choice to connect despite fear becomes a testament to the depth of their heart. And as you embrace this truth, you step forward with clarity, with strength, and with the certainty that love, even when careful and cautious, is not diminished. It is amplified. It is intentional. It is powerful. It is worth everything. The clarity you have gained is a weapon. It cuts through doubt, cuts through fear, cuts through every thought that once made you question your worth. You begin to see the truth in the small, deliberate choices they make. You notice when they linger, even when retreat feels safer. You feel the intention in every message, every remembered detail, every moment of presence offered despite hesitation. These are not trivial acts. They are monumental. They are proof that someone is fighting against their own instincts to care for you. And when you see this, you understand that you are not chasing illusions. You are witnessing courage, vulnerability, and deliberate love in its rawest form. You begin to read the rhythm of their heart. You notice the way they return after distance, not by chance, but by choice. You recognize that retreat is not abandonment. It is protection. Every step back is a shield, every silence a test, and every cautious advance a sign of trust. And when you interpret these correctly, the stakes rise. You understand that missing these subtle cues could mean misreading the very essence of their heart. Each gesture is a treasure. Each moment of connection is rare. Each act of engagement is deliberate. And when you see this clearly, you start to act differently. You respond with insight, not anxiety. You honor their investment without compromising your own worth. Your heart, once tired from uncertainty, begins to rise in power. You no longer bend under doubt. You no longer spin in confusion. You recognize the courage behind every careful act, the heart behind every hesitant step forward, the love hidden beneath every retreat. You understand that each gesture, each return, each small moment is intentional. It is proof that they are choosing to engage, to invest, to fight for the connection you share. And with this understanding, you gain the ability to respond with purpose. You no longer react to absence with panic. You respond to presence with recognition. You honor the deliberate way love is being shown. Every small gesture becomes a signal to read. Every return after distance becomes confirmation of care. Every deliberate choice becomes evidence that they have chosen you, repeatedly, cautiously, courageously. And you begin to see love not as chaos or inconsistency, but as intentional, deliberate, and profoundly meaningful. You realize that love can be cautious and still be real. It can be measured and still be powerful. It can be quiet and still be monumental. And as you witness this, you begin to value connection not for its volume, but for its depth. You begin to understand that subtlety is not weakness. It is proof of courage and investment. The stakes continue to rise. Each moment you observe now carries urgency. You cannot afford to misread them. You cannot afford to overlook the courage behind their care. Every subtle signal, every deliberate gesture is precious, and recognizing it is essential. You see that love, when wrapped in fear, requires both observation and insight. It demands awareness, understanding, and deliberate recognition. And when you respond from this place, you step into a new reality, a reality where clarity replaces doubt, Understanding replaces confusion, and strength replaces anxiety. Your perception transforms. You stop chasing illusions of constant attention. You stop spinning in the chaos of uncertainty. You step into the rhythm of their heart, honoring each careful, courageous act of care. You begin to see the rare beauty of deliberate investment. You respond with awareness, with insight, with presence. You honor both your own heart and theirs. You witness love not for what it could be, but for what it truly is: intentional, courageous, rare, and profoundly transformative. And in that witness, you find freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from fear, freedom from spinning in uncertainty. You recognize the deliberate courage behind every choice they make. You honor their investment. You cherish their presence. You understand that love, even when cautious, is not diminished. It is amplified. It is rare. It is powerful. It is worth everything. You step forward with clarity, strength, and certainty, seeing and honoring love in its most authentic, deliberate, and courageous form. You are awake. You are aware. You are empowered. You are ready. Now that you have seen the courage behind their care, you begin to feel a new power rising inside you. You understand that love is not always visible. It is not always loud. It is often quiet, cautious, and deliberate. And when it is deliberate, it carries weight that few ever appreciate. Every moment they linger despite fear. Every message they send when retreat would be easier. Every subtle act of attention becomes proof. Proof that they are fighting against themselves to reach you. Proof that they are invested. Proof that connection matters enough to risk discomfort, vulnerability, and the instinct to pull away. You start to notice how carefully they choose to engage, how their gestures are small but intentional, how they remember details others overlook, how they show up even when it is inconvenient, even when fear tugs at them to retreat. You recognize that these are not accidents. These are deliberate acts of investment. And understanding this changes everything. Suddenly, the anxiety that once consumed you fades. Doubt no longer dominates your thoughts. The patterns that once confused you now reveal meaning. The moments of care, once subtle, now shine as proof of a heart choosing to connect despite the risk, and with this understanding, the stakes grow higher. Every interaction becomes important. Every pause carries significance. Every return after distance becomes a statement. Missing these cues is no longer an option. Misreading them is no longer acceptable. Each act of deliberate care is rare, precious, and revealing. It is a test of perception, awareness, and understanding. When you grasp it, you begin to act differently. You respond with insight instead of anxiety. You honor their investment instead of demanding proof. You recognize courage where others might see inconsistency. You see love for what it is, not for what it seems to be. Your heart, once weighed down by uncertainty, begins to rise in clarity. You begin to read the subtle language of their care. Every hesitation becomes understandable. Every retreat becomes interpretable. Every careful approach becomes meaningful. You no longer chase illusions. You no longer spin in confusion. You honor each moment, each gesture, each return as proof of deliberate investment. You understand that their love is cautious not because it is absent, but because it is precious, because it is intentional, because it matters. And recognizing this gives you a new kind of freedom, a freedom from doubt, from fear, from the chaos that once consumed you. You start to act from awareness. You respond with clarity. You recognize courage in hesitation, intention in subtlety, and love in careful acts of presence. You honor the deliberate way they invest while honoring your own worth. Each interaction becomes a signal to read, a moment to interpret, a thread connecting the quiet patterns into a tapestry of care. And as you do, your heart grows stronger. You see the rhythm of their connection, the weight of their choice, and the truth of their commitment. You step forward with understanding, ready to engage fully, yet wisely, with eyes wide open to the courage behind every gesture. And the power of this awareness is unstoppable. You no longer bend under uncertainty. You no longer question your value. You no longer interpret distance as rejection. You recognize the deliberate courage behind each act of care. You value it, cherish it, and respond to it with the respect it demands. You see that love, even when cautious and hesitant, is not weak. It is intentional. It is rare. It is profound. And when we Oh, witness it fully, you realize something extraordinary. That deliberate, cautious love carries a depth, a strength, and a meaning that reckless affection can never achieve. With this insight, you step into a new reality, one where clarity guides your heart, one where courage is recognized, one where care is appreciated. You honor their investment and respond with presence, intention, and strength. You see the rare courage it takes to love cautiously. You recognize the value of each subtle gesture. You witness love in its purest, most authentic form. And in this witnessing, you claim freedom, understanding, and the unshakable knowledge that love, even when careful, is not diminished. It is amplified. It is powerful. It is deliberate. It is worth everything. You move forward with clarity, awareness, and the certainty that what you are witnessing is real, rare, and transformative. The moment you fully recognize the courage behind their careful love, you step into a different dimension of understanding. You see that love is not always loud. It does not always announce itself in gestures the world applauds. Sometimes it is quiet, subtle, deliberate, and invisible to those who are not paying attention. And yet, it carries a weight far greater than grand declarations. Every small act of attention, every message sent despite hesitation, every moment of presence offered when retreat feels safer is proof. Proof that they are choosing you, repeatedly, courageously, even when fear begs them to step back. You begin to notice how intentionally they navigate connection, how they return after distance not by accident but as a conscious choice, how they remember the smallest details, how they linger when withdrawal would be simpler. You see that retreat is not rejection, it is protection. And every careful approach is not hesitation, it is trust, it is deliberate engagement. It is a heart willing to fight against instinct, to choose connection over comfort. And the stakes of this understanding are higher than ever. Missing these cues is no longer an option. Misreading them is no longer acceptable. Every subtle act, every deliberate gesture is rare, precious, and revealing. The power of recognizing this transforms your heart. You no longer bend under uncertainty. You no longer chase illusions of constant attention. You no longer measure love by frequency, volume, or noise. You respond from insight, not anxiety. You honor their deliberate acts of care while honoring your own worth. You understand that each careful step forward is not casual. It is monumental. Each return after distance is a victory. Each gesture of presence, a declaration of intentional connection. And as you witness this, the patterns that once confused you begin to form a map, a guide to understanding, to insight, to clarity. Your perception sharpens. You start reading the subtle language of their heart. You notice hesitation and interpret it as courage. You see silence and understand it as protection. You recognize that their careful steps toward you are deliberate, not accidental. And this awareness gives you strength. You act from knowledge instead of fear. You value each gesture, each moment, each act of attention. You no longer spin in chaos. You no longer let uncertainty control your emotions. You honor connection in its truest form, seeing love for what it is, not for what it appears to be. The urgency of this understanding grows with every interaction. Each subtle signal, each cautious gesture carries meaning. Missing it means missing the proof of their heart. Misreading it means misunderstanding love itself. You begin to respond not with doubt, but with presence, not with need, but with awareness, not with fear, but with clarity. You see the deliberate courage behind every act, the intention behind every choice, and the love that persists even when hidden beneath hesitation. You start to honor the rhythm of their heart, the calculated bravery of their care, and the rarity of their deliberate investment. And this recognition gives you freedom. Freedom from chaos, freedom from doubt, freedom from the endless questioning that once consumed your nights. You see clearly, you act with clarity, you respond with insight, you recognize the courage behind every stir, the heart behind every pause, and the intention behind every connection. You value deliberate love, you honor rare care, You witness authenticity in its purest, most cautious, and most transformative form. You understand that love, even when careful, hesitant, and restrained, is not diminished. It is amplified. It is intentional. It is rare. It is worth everything. You step forward with this awareness, no longer at the mercy of uncertainty. You honor each deliberate act, each courageous gesture, each subtle sign. You see the depth, the bravery, and the authenticity of love that moves quietly, carefully, yet powerfully. You respond with presence, with strength, and with the certainty that you are witnessing something extraordinary, something rare, something deliberate, something that chooses over and over again to show up, to invest, and to care. You are awake, you are aware, you are empowered. You are ready to embrace love at its most authentic, intentional, and transformative form. Now that you understand the courage behind their cautious love, you begin to feel a shift deep within yourself. You realize that connection is not measured by volume or speed. It is measured by intention, by deliberate choice, by the quiet moments that demand awareness to recognize. Every subtle gesture they make, every calculated return after distance, every act of attention offered despite fear becomes monumental. These are not accidents, they are proof. Proof that they are choosing to engage, to invest, to care, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it scares them. And when you truly see this, you feel a new power rising inside you, a power born of clarity, insight, and awareness. You start reading the patterns that once confused you. You notice how they pull away not to push you out, but to protect themselves. You see how their silences are shields, how their hesitation is courage, how every careful approach is a message that says, I matter to you and I choose to stay. And this recognition changes the way you respond. You stop chasing illusions of constant attention. You stop spinning in anxiety. You stop questioning your worth. Instead, you honor each act, each gesture, each return as evidence of deliberate investment. You learn to value what is rare because it is real. You begin to understand that cautious love, when chosen repeatedly, is more powerful than reckless affection ever could be. The stakes rise as you pay attention. Every subtle signal now matters. Every deliberate gesture becomes a proof point. Missing them is no longer an option. Misreading them risks misunderstanding the very heart of the connection. You start responding from insight, not need. You honor presence, not absence. You recognize bravery where others might see inconsistency. You see that what appears fragile or hesitant is actually strong, intentional, and courageous. You begin to witness love as it truly is, not as the world tells you it should be. And with each observation, the clarity inside you grows sharper, more unshakable. Your heart, once weighed down by uncertainty, rises in power. You notice the subtle language of their care. Every pause, every return, every small gesture carries meaning. You begin to interpret hesitation as courage, silence as protection, and cautious engagement as trust. You respond from awareness instead of fear. You honor the deliberate steps they take, understanding that each one is monumental. And this awareness transforms the way you relate, the way you perceive, and the way you value the moments you share. You begin to act with intention. You no longer allow doubt to dictate your emotions. You recognize the courage behind each careful act. You respond with clarity, presence, and strength. Each moment of connection becomes a signal to observe, a pattern to interpret, a proof of deliberate choice. You honor both your heart and theirs. You see the rhythm of their engagement, the bravery in each gesture, and the authenticity behind every cautious choice. You step forward with knowledge, insight, and a deep respect for the rare and deliberate nature of the love being shown. And the freedom you gain is extraordinary. Freedom from doubt, freedom from spinning thoughts, freedom from questioning your worth. You see clearly now. You understand deeply. You act decisively. You recognize the courage, the intention, and the heart behind every gesture. You witness love in its most authentic, deliberate, and transformative form. You see that cautious love is not diminished, it is amplified. It is rare, powerful, and profoundly meaningful. Every small act, every subtle sign, every careful engagement becomes monumental in your understanding. You move forward with this clarity. You honor deliberate acts, recognize courage, and witness the authenticity of love that moves quietly but powerfully. You respond with presence, insight, and strength. You value each gesture. You cherish each moment. You understand that deliberate, cautious love is a choice repeated, a commitment tested, a connection worth every ounce of attention it demands. And as you embrace this truth, you step forward fully awake, fully aware, fully empowered. You see, you honor, and you embrace love in its most authentic, intentional, and transformative form. You are ready. You are unstoppable. You are alive to it in its full, rare, and extraordina. Rye power. Now that you can see the courage woven into every careful act, you begin to understand something extraordinary. Love is not always about grand gestures or constant presence. Sometimes it is quiet, hesitant, and measured. Sometimes it arrives in fragments, in subtle moments, in gestures that demand awareness to recognize. And yet, when it is deliberate, when it is chosen despite fear, it carries a power no other love can match. Every message sent when retreat would be easier, every detail remembered that no one else notices, every moment of presence offered despite hesitation becomes monumental. These are not trivial acts. They are declarations of investment, proof that they are choosing connection over comfort, courage over fear. You start to notice the patterns that once confused you. Distance is no longer absence, it is protection. Silence is no longer rejection, it is restraint. Hesitation is not weakness, it is courage. And every return after a pause, every careful approach after withdrawal is a signal of trust, a proof of deliberate choice. Understanding this changes the way you perceive everything. The anxiety that once consumed you begins to fade. Doubt no longer dominates your thoughts. You see the rhythm of their engagement, the bravery behind each cautious gesture, and the intention that drives every subtle act of care. The stakes rise with every observation. Missing these signals is no longer an option. Misreading them risks misunderstanding the very heart of their connection. Every small gesture now carries weight. Every deliberate act becomes rare and precious. You begin to respond not from need or fear, but from awareness and insight. You honor essence, appreciate effort, and recognize courage where others might see inconsistency. You start witnessing love as it truly is, not as the world tells you it should be. You see intention, courage, and deliberation, and in doing so, you step into a new level of understanding that transforms the way you relate. Your heart, once burdened by uncertainty, begins to rise with clarity. You read the subtle language of their care. You interpret hesitation as bravery. You see retreat as protection. You recognize deliberate engagement as a declaration of trust. And this awareness gives you a new kind of power. You act from insight instead of anxiety, from presence instead of absence. Every interaction becomes a signal to read, a pattern to follow, a proof of deliberate investment. You honor their courage while preserving your own worth. You no longer chase illusions or get lost in doubt. You respond with clarity, with strength, and with awareness. You see the courage behind each act, the intention behind every choice, the heart behind every gesture. You recognize that love can be cautious, hesitant, and careful, yet still be profound, real, and transformative. Every small signal, every careful step, every act of deliberate attention is evidence of their investment, and you begin to value it with the respect it demands. You understand that the hesitation you once feared is a shield, that the silence you once doubted is protection, and that the cautious steps forward are deliberate declarations of care. Freedom emerges from this clarity. Freedom from doubt, freedom from spinning in uncertainty, freedom from interpreting absence as indifference. You begin to respond with awareness in sight and presence. You honor both your heart and theirs. You witness love in its purest, most authentic, and most courageous form. You recognize its rarity, its power, its depth. You see that deliberate, cautious love is not weakened by restraint. It is amplified, intentional, and monumental. Every gesture, every return, every small moment of connection becomes proof that they are fighting to stay, to invest, to care. You move forward with this knowledge. You honor deliberate acts, recognize bravery, and witness love that is quiet yet powerful, cautious yet transformative. You respond with insight, clarity, and strength. You see the extraordinary courage it takes to love cautiously. You value each moment. You cherish each deliberate choice. You understand that love, when chosen carefully and intentionally, carries a depth and meaning that reckless affection can never achieve. And as you embrace this truth, you step fully into awareness, fully into power, fully into the capacity to honor and receive love in its most authentic, deliberate, and extraordinary form. You are ready. You are awake. You are unstoppable. When you fully grasp the courage behind their careful love, everything you thought you knew about connection shifts. You realize that love is not always obvious. It does not always announce itself with grand gestures or constant words. Often, it is quiet, measured, and deliberate, and that deliberation carries power that loud affection could never achieve. Every message sent when retreat would be easier, every detail remembered when it could have been forgotten, every moment of presence offered despite fear is monumental. These are not small acts, they are declarations of choice, proof that someone is prioritizing connection over comfort, courage over instinct, and care over convenience. You begin to notice the subtle patterns that once eluded you. Distance is not absence, it is protection. Silence is not rejection, it is restraint. Hesitation is not weakness, it is courage. Careful step forward, every return after withdrawal, every gesture of deliberate attention becomes a sign of trust, a signal that the heart is willing to risk vulnerability to stay connected. And when you see this clearly, the stakes rise. Every subtle cue becomes essential. Every small gesture becomes rare and precious. Misreading them is no longer an option. Overlooking them is no longer acceptable. Your heart, once burdened by doubt, begins to rise in power. You start reading the language of their care. You interpret hesitation as bravery, retreat as protection, and cautious engagement as trust. You respond from insight instead of anxiety, from presence instead of absence, from